'Twas the night before Christmas, but COVID was here, so we all had to stay extra cautious this year. Our masks were all hung by the chimney with care, in case Santa forgot his and needed a spare. With COVID, we couldn't leave cookies or cake, so we left Santa hand sanitizer to take. The children were sleeping, the brave little tots. The ones over 5 had just had their first shots, and Mum in her kerchief and me in my cap had just settled in for a long winter's nap. But we tossed and we turned all night in our beds as visions of variants danced in our heads. Gamma and Delta and now Omicron, these COVID mutations that go on and on. I thought to myself, if this doesn't get better, I'll soon be familiar with every Greek letter. Then just as I started to drift off and doze, a clatter of noise from the front lawn arose. I leapt from my bed and ran straight down the stairs and opened the door. An old gent was there. His N95 made him look pretty weird, but I knew who he was by his red suit and beard. I kept 6 feet away, but blurted out quick, "What are you doing here, jolly St. Nick?" Then I said, "Where's your presents? Your reindeer, your sleigh? Don't you know that tomorrow will be Christmas Day?" And Santa stood there, looking sad in the snow, as he started to tell me a long tale of woe. He said he'd been stuck at the North Pole alone. All his white-collar elves had been working from home. And most of the others said, "Santa, don't hire us. We can live off CERB now, thanks to the virus." Those left in the toy shop had little to do. With supply chain disruptions, they could make nothing new. And as for the reindeer, they'd all gone away. None of them left to pull on his sleigh. He said Dasher and Dancer were in quarantine. Prancer and Vixen refused the vaccine. Comet and Cupid were in ICU. So were Donner and Blitzen. They may not pull through. And Rudolph's career can't be resurrected. With his shiny red nose, they all think he's infected. Even with his old sleigh, Santa couldn't go far. Every border to cross needs a new PCR. Santa told me and sighed as he said how nice it would be if children could once again sit on his knee. He couldn't care less if they're naughty or nice, but they'd have to show proof that they'd had their shot twice. And then the old twinkle returned to his eyes. He said that he'd brought me a Christmas surprise. When I unwrapped the box and opened it wide, starlight and rainbows flew out from inside. Some letters whirled round and went up in the sky. They spelt out a word that was 40 feet high. There was first an H, then an O, then a P, and I saw it spelled hope when they added the E. Christmas magic, said Santa, as he smiled through his beard. Then all of a sudden, all the reindeer appeared. He jumped in his sleigh and he waved me goodbye. Then he soared over the rooftops and into the sky. I heard him exclaim as he drove out of sight, "Get your hope, my friends. Merry Christmas. Good night." Then I went back to bed, and a sweet Christmas dream of a world where we'd finished with COVID-19. It's been a hard year. I think the hardest for our world that I can remember. We all started locked down by COVID. We started to get vaccinated, but just as we came out of the lockdown, we were hit by a heat dome. And that was inevitably followed by wildfires, including the destruction of whole communities. Through the summer, the Delta variant became dominant. We thought we would find relief in the fall. But October brought flooding to southwest BC, including more destruction of whole communities. And some of us at St Andrews were caught up in the flooding in Abbotsford or prevented from travel. All of us have had to deal with supply disruption. And then came Omicron. And once again, we are locked out of our church at Christmas. It has been a hard year. So where do we find hope? And what does that hope look like? For most of us, the big hope through COVID has been vaccination. The speed of producing the vaccines that we have has been a modern-day miracle. It's a huge relief to know that 3 shots of the vaccine should protect us against the worst that Omicron can do. After the devastating flood, another kind of hope has been the hope of restored road and rail links. Again, we have seen modern miracles of rebuilding. The Coquihalla Highway fixed in a few weeks. There are some places where hope eludes us. Climate change is still not being addressed with any urgency. First Nations communities are still cut off by flooding and have been passed over in the rebuilding. But at this time of year, we need to remember where our true hope lies and what it looks like. Our hope lies in a stable's feeding trough. Our hope looks like a homeless refugee child, the lowest of the low. Our hope is not in human ingenuity or mechanical prowess. Our hope is light in darkness. Our hope is life in the midst of death and despair. Our hope is of a new relationship with the source of all life. It has been a hard year. For many of us, it has been our hope in God that has sustained us. Our hope in the God who loves us. It is that that has kept us going. That has been the light in our darkness. That hope is seen in the child whose birth we celebrate. God coming into our world to bring us hope. to renew God's relationship with us, to bring us joy and peace and hope. Amen.